Cloudcast Media.
Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, and we are so pleased to have in the studio making a return appearance the San Diego Senior Community Foundation. We're joined by Kris Kelly, Director of Partnerships. How you doing, Kris?
Great. How you doing?
It's been a while, man.
Yeah.
How's that iconic dad of yours?
Oh, the iconic dad.
That's right. Yeah, obviously, I just gave him more fodder. Whether it's Bob Kelly, longtime colleague of mine, of course, community leader in the San Diego Foundation. 20 years, is that right?
Yeah, exactly. 20 years to the day.
Something like that. That's great. And obviously, Kris is doing great things himself as a community leader, joined by your colleague, Thomas Sherman. He is the marketing director. How you doing, Thomas?
Good. How you doing, Drew? Thanks.
How long have you been with the organization?
I've been with the organization 3 months, so I'm relatively new too.
Oh, yeah. Listen, 3 months, you can learn a lot on that aspect of it. I assume it sounds like 3 decades in some ways, and sometimes 3 minutes, right?
It's been incredible in the last 3 months, how much I've learned and been exposed to. Really amazing.
It's a great foundation. We're joined by the associate producer of my Spotlight show, Brandon Joe. He is also the founder and CEO of his own nonprofit. He's a young entrepreneur. It's called Treasure Hacks, and Brandon is going to be an incoming junior at UCSD. We'll start with you on this one, Kris. What's the mission of the foundation?
Oh, boy. Well, we are trying to increase the awareness and action towards impacting seniors and increase philanthropy to senior-focused organizations. And together, we can create a future where seniors are no longer vulnerable but vibrant.
Right. And we cannot talk about what you folks do and the other wonderful organizations serving seniors and Paul's group and Oasis and Simona. And what's interesting, and I always love chatting about this, we have our good friends at St. Paul's Senior Services. You guys just do such unbelievable things. But the need is huge as we start to live longer, correct? Is that one of the biggest challenges, Kris?
That's true. We predict there's going to be 930,000 seniors over the age of 65 by the year 2030. And we've never seen this in San Diego, and also the world is also dealing with this same issue, and the infrastructure is not there. So that's why we exist.
Right. And so this is why there's a community foundation for seniors?
That's right. So Bob Kelly, my father, as you mentioned, once he retired the San Diego Foundation, he was dealing with a lot of high net worth donors.
Yes, he was.
Before that, he was at Sharp Healthcare and dealt with a lot of seniors that used to come to Sharp, and he went through senior sensitivity training. And so these donors would lose a spouse or get ill, and the entourage would kind of dissipate and walk away. And they would call him so lonely and not having any answers around aging. And so he would say, wait a minute, you have all the resources and the money in the world, yet you can't figure out this difficult journey of aging. I can't imagine what other folks around San Diego are dealing with. So he said, I'm going to do something about this. He also noticed that less than 3% of charitable dollars goes towards seniors because seniors aren't sexy. No one's aging in California, if not the world, that we don't talk about as Americans aging. So he said, why don't we set up infrastructure for aging here in San Diego? And we'll try and increase that number. So I'm going to start the first community foundation focused on seniors in the world, if not the world. And, this is going to be easy. Well, raising money for seniors is tough because we're not kids or puppies. But at the same time, it's very much needed because I don't know if you know this, we're all aging.
I refuse to age,
Yes.
and that's all there is to it. But you bring up something that's so important, and maybe, Thomas, you can address this as well, and I say this unabashedly all the time on the shows. We don't, as a whole, in the United States, treat our seniors like they do in other parts of the world. That's not earth-shaking to people that, this Native American families love their seniors and their elders and all that. People in Europe, I know that sounds like a gross generalization, but I think it's a pretty true one. Do you agree with that, Thomas?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And one of the things I look at as a communications person are the different kinds of trends that are happening in our society. And although we're living longer, and a lot of us are living much healthier and longer, there's sort of this opposite trend that's happening where we're still getting more and more obsessed with youth. And I think ageism is actually becoming more and more of a problem. I read an article last week that 30% of employees that were surveyed said that 58 was too old to hire.
Yeah, okay, see, this makes me go crazy, and this will be now a 15-hour interview. By the way, you don't have anything to do for the next 15 hours, I hope. You know, when you hear that stuff, obviously the phenomenal ignorance that, comes from that, because it's the exact opposite. The seniors have so much to offer at all ages. Their insights, their history, their enthusiasm, their collaboration. How do we change that trajectory?
It's, that's tough. I think we have to celebrate more stories of older people and the successes that older people have had. And I think that, a lot of times we try to put, a happy face on, caring for seniors and cheerleading. But I think we have to celebrate more of the successes and the contributions that seniors make to us. And I think in our own personal lives, I think about all the mentors that I've had in my own life and that to this day still impact me. And one of them still alive and still talk to him every week.
No, it's real critical. Brandon?
And I have to totally agree with that because some of my best mentors have been people that are 60 plus. And those are the ones that I have learned the most from, have offered the most for, and people who I'd call a friend. And really not having them in the workplace is kind of a detriment because there's a lot you can gain from having that interaction between the young people and the old people. There's just, in general, something that should be fostered more often. You create this sort of generational gap where you have people like myself look up or even, you can even say like 2 generations past ourselves, difficult to talk to them or to, realize that these are people that I can learn from. And it's an immensely valuable place to find, but also treating them like people as well. Because I know that there's people in my generation that look at older people like a burden. Like those are people that all my taxes are going to go to and I'm going to have to pay for, because it's with the incoming baby boomers, we have a large portion of our population are going to be 60 plus in the coming years.
That's absolutely true. And when I think about all the older people that have really touched my life, it's, when we talk about older people or seniors, we sort of fall back on these stereotypes. But then when you start to talk about those individuals that are really in your life that impact you, the reality of these being real human beings, really comes to life.
But also, I think, a lot of these are teachers, professors that we probably had in our life. And then all of a sudden you become their age. And you say, wow, that really wasn't that old. But now they're older. But, I really respected my grandparents, got a lot of wisdom from them. And there's a lot of wisdom that seniors can give to kids. And that's why we also focus on intergenerational work. But you do see a big divide between boomers and, X and all these different generations saying, oh, well, the government's got it. They have a pension, they have Social Security. We're not going to have that. But it's not true. Some of it is, but a lot of it is the government doesn't have it. And that's why we believe that philanthropy is definitely going to fill the gaps to build infrastructure for seniors and aging here in San Diego.
There's no question. We're chatting with Kris Kelly. He's the Director of Partnerships of the San Diego Senior Community Foundation, joined by his colleague, Thomas Sherman, Marketing Director for the foundation. Drew Schlosberg, as you're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, the nation's longest-running community podcast, now in our 18th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union for more than 6 decades. Been doing great things for people living in San Diego County. Joined by my frequent co-host, that's Brandon Joe. He's the associate producer of the Spotlight Show and the CEO and founder of Treasure Hacks. Brandon?
Just out of curiosity, when you say you make it a point to foster these conversations, what does that look like for you guys? Because I know even for myself, I have older mentors. I still find it difficult to talk to my grandparents, for example. I don't know what questions to ask sometimes. What would you have to say about that?
I think, I mean, my question for you, I guess, is why do you find it difficult to talk with your grandparents versus like the mentors? Is it just because it's outside of the family relationship, so it's more of a friendship?
I think, I feel like there is that level of when you're talking to family, I guess maybe it's partly just because my Asian culture as well. It's difficult to find or to look at my parents, my grandparents, like friends, like people that I can ask about, like experiences. Like, what was the last time you got completely hammered? No, like just like lighthearted things, lighthearted stories, so I can really get into the nitty-gritty, deeper stories, because that's a segue into those things, or so I find.
Well, you got to realize that everyone was young once. I was your age once. I mean, when I was in college, I'm much different now as a father and a loving husband than I was a 19, 20-year-old at college. But your parents and grandparents had experiences that we had. And I'm a third-generation San Diegan. And one of the best things I used to do is ask my grandparents about San Diego history,
right,
as it pertains to my family, and what happened here. And it's amazing the stories you get, starting with that. And then my parents, they're here to tell me, like my dad tells me, don't do this, don't do that, watch out, step here. I think there's also apprenticeships like Thomas was hitting on, those are kind of a thing of the past, apprenticeships. And we've been looking, you were asking earlier, Drew, where do we look for our data in different programs things to do here? Well, Australia has this movement that Thomas will get into called The Shed, where there was a senior center in Australia, and most of the programming was more catered towards females. And the guys were sitting around going, gosh, I don't want to do quilting. I don't want to do all this stuff. So this guy cleared out the shed in the back of the senior center. He goes, guys, this is more or less our man cave or our shed. And so what happened? Well, us guys, girls can go to coffee, and this is generalized, so don't cancel me for this, but women mostly sit and go to lunch and coffee, and they gab and they gossip and they have fun. Us guys, we do things shoulder to shoulder. We do things together. So this shed created an opportunity for guys to do different community projects. Maybe they were building, maybe they're doing car shops, things like this. And that expanded throughout Australia, is now moving across the US and other parts of the world, where now, finding connection, because loneliness is one of the other biggest things that the Seniors Foundation tackles. And there's about 130,000 elder orphans in San Diego. And so just think during COVID, just like you're saying about your grandparents, maybe they weren't so good at technology. They're sitting home alone, scared to go to the grocery store, et cetera, et cetera. All of us were home. I have a family. Gosh, I was bored. But they're lonely, they're bored, they don't have that social engagement. So the senior center and these sheds movement, now you find a social fabric that you want to go hang out on. You're doing a project together. You're volunteering together, things like that. And it's young folks and older gentlemen doing things together and learning from one another. Like right now, Thomas is involved, and sorry, I'll put you on the spot, but he's involved with this makerspace. If you want to talk more about, that's more or less a shed.
It is, and one of the amazing things about that is that it's completely volunteer run. It's run on a lot of donations. It's called a CoLab SD. It's a makerspace that was started by the Berner community. One of the most impressive things about that community, we actually just moved into a new warehouse space, and the number of volunteers that we had show up and help clean garbage and paint walls and come in and do proper construction, plumbing and putting up walls was really, really impressive. And I think that, one of the other points about senior centers is people think, there are places where people go and you can find activities to do. But a lot of the really impressive programs that we've seen at some of the senior centers are actually run by volunteers. And so they're actually a place where people can go and initiate their own programs and look for people with like-minded interests.
I think that's terrific. We're chatting with Thomas Sherman, Marketing Director for the San Diego Senior Community Foundation, joined by his colleague, Kris Kelly, Director of Partnerships for the Foundation. I'm Drew Schlosberg. You're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, nation's longest-running community podcast, now in our 18th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union for 6 decades, just doing great things for folk in San Diego County. When we come back from a break, Kris and Thomas, I want to talk about the Senior Center Master Plan. You touched on it a little bit on the Senior Alone campaign. Isolation is huge in this area, and we always save time to find out from you folks what our listeners can do to support your efforts when we return after this break.
When you do your banking with Mission Fed, you get great rates on auto and home loans. That's good for you, but something good also happens for a lot of other people. We're not for profit, so we put money back into the community to help lots of great nonprofits to keep San Diego strong. So you're not just getting something good, you're doing something good. Come to Mission Fed. It's banking that's good for all.
Brand amplification is the DNA of Cloudcast Media, and our code is the powerful blending of sound, voice, and storytelling to lift local brands and their communities. Whether it is our Brandcast, Schoolcast, or Causecast platforms, the unifying ethos is all about this community, the one you call home. If you dare to dream and want to explore the brand amplification of Cloudcast, a national leader in local podcasting and other Winfluence strategies, please visit us at cloudcast.us.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. You're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, chatting with some cool cats from the San Diego Senior Community Foundation. Kris Kelly, Director of Partnerships, joined by his colleague Thomas Sherman, Marketing Director. Right before break, we wanted to hear about your Senior Center Master Plan, Kris.
Absolutely. So the San Diego Seniors Community Foundation, we're enhancing the physical, mental, financial, and social well-being for all seniors in San Diego. And so looking at our Senior Center Master Plan, we're looking at how can we build the infrastructure for aging here in San Diego to support all seniors here in San Diego. And we look at the past. So early when folks were migrating to America from Italy and Ireland, like my family did, they were landing in Ellis Island in New York, and lo and behold, they finally moved in from the farmland into the city. And there was a bunch of kids running around, smoking cigarettes, causing trouble. They had nowhere to go. So what do? We built playgrounds, the Boys and Girls Club, YMCAs, and other organizations like that to house them and get them out of trouble. Playgrounds didn't even exist at that time. So now we're looking at this big boom of population here in San Diego and the world with all these seniors, and there's nowhere really to go. They're at home. Senior isolation, as we mentioned earlier, is a big issue. So what can we do? Well, we looked at the senior centers, just like we did the libraries here in San Diego in the 90s. In the 90s, my father, Bob Kelly, worked with different philanthropists like the Hervey family, the Seftons, the Jacobs, and started building a sophisticated network of libraries around San Diego. Usually people were saying, well, we don't need another library. That's just paper and books. And now we have this new thing called the World Wide Web. And now,
haven't heard that term in about 100 years, but that's
right.
okay.
Everyone got the AOL CD in the mail.
Exactly. That's right.
So they built these sophisticated network of libraries and rebranded them to what they are today with all these programs and services and classes that are offered there that we now see as a library. So looking at that same exact model that happened in the 90s here in San Diego, that was a movement, and we really had to educate and influence people across the county. We now are looking at senior centers. How can we make these aging hubs in every community? Because everybody wants to live in your home as long as you can. But if there's a place down the street that has a central hub for aging where you can get the answers, a place to turn to and trust, there's programs, services, and also someone that you can talk to, a navigator saying, I'm having financial health issues. I'm having physical health issues. My mom just died. My dad just fell down. What do I do? Because I don't know if you guys have dealt with an older parent or a relative. It is not easy. As we say, aging is cool. Everyone's doing it, but also aging is not for sissies.
Well, and you bring up an interesting point on that. We talk about this quite a bit when we have the Alzheimer's Association on, and I'm sure there's a lot of connectivity between what you folks do and Alzheimer's, and of course that's growing because we're getting older. And when you chat about that aspect of it, is there's 600,000 caregivers in San Diego County. 300,000 look like us. Now we're taking care of an elderly parent. I didn't sign, of course you signed up for it being a kid, but we're not trained to do this. Yes, there's 300,000 trained caregivers, but most of them, the ones like us, I wasn't trained to do this. And I was fortunate enough that my mom was able to be taken care of in her later years by visiting angels. And, but that was fine. I couldn't do that with my mom. And you're really spot on that aspect of it. Now, the master plan, certainly very ambitious, right? Is there money being raised for finances to that? Is there a capital plan involved? Is there everything in between?
Everything in between. Yeah. So we have about 28 senior centers throughout the entire county. That's Imperial Beach, all the way up to Oceanside, all the way up to Borrego, et cetera, et cetera. There's areas of town that do not have senior centers. For example, East County has no senior center.
That is amazing. I did not know that.
And then you go out in the rural areas, and it's harder to get a senior center. There is one in Borrego, there is one in Julian, Ramona, et cetera. But what we're trying to do is build a sophisticated network of senior centers across San Diego County in every single community that you can get to. Now, we know transportation is the issue, and we'll talk about that later. But we are raising money to look at different communities and build or refresh or reimagine senior centers in every single community. So what does that look like? Yes, we've given out over $2 million in different monies for programming, capital upgrades. So maybe they got new paint. Maybe they had a new door. Like, for example, Fallbrook, they have a thrift shop. It's killer. If you guys have not been out there, go check it out. We gave them monies to expand their footprint of their thrift shop so they can receive larger gifts to then make more money to sustain the senior center. If you look at Rancho Bernardo, we're working with them. We hired staffing. We actually hired an executive director to use as our kind of lab. A lot of people don't know they exist. They're in the corner of this park in Rancho Bernardo, but they have an empty lawn bowling course that we are lobbying to put in pickleball courts. Why? Because that'll be a community engagement and also sustain the senior center to create more revenue and also create more programming and interest into the senior center. So what we're doing is, to answer your question, is we're raising money to benefit all the senior centers throughout the county and to bootstrap them. So either enhance them or build new ones, and really look at the master plan and get them all on board. We work with the National Council on Aging, and so we're trying to get accreditation from the National Institute of Senior Centers, which is underneath that National Council on Aging, for all of our senior centers. So every community, not just Del Mar, not just La Jolla, has a great senior center, but Barrio Logan, which is actually coming online. And one more story. We were actually lobbying. So this is policy and advocacy and making people really care. Well, Nora Vargas definitely cares about seniors. She lobbied with us. We sat in front of the Claremont Kathy Hopper Friendship Center saying, this isn't right. This is closed down, this senior center, with all these seniors, mainly veterans in the Claremont area, with no place to go. And they used to meet on tennis courts and have line dancing and just kind of do a faux senior center because it wasn't open. Well, we lobbied, campaigned, got with Nora, got with the county board of supervisors. They all agreed. They gave us a board letter. And guess what? We're a year in, and Kathy Hopper is back open.
I wonder if that's a Kathy Hopper. Was she an educator?
Oh, yeah, she was the best.
So I think I worked with her at San Diego Unified back in the day. That really shows you how old I am. Again, we're chatting with Kris Kelly, a director of partnerships for the San Diego Senior Foundation, joined by his colleague Thomas Sherman, the marketing director for the foundation. You touched on transportation. And obviously transportation can lead to isolation if you don't have transportation, correct?
That's
How
right.
do you solve that?
So yeah, that's the big, I believe caregiving and transportation are the big iceberg. You touched on caregiving earlier. It's really hard to find caregivers. If I can make $25 an hour at Starbucks versus caregiving for an older adult, I think I might choose Starbucks, right? Yeah. So that's been really tough. And also a family, it's really hard on a family member. But transportation. So we look around town. We have great agencies here that say, hey, we have rider anxiety. We'll train you how to ride public transportation. It's not the best. It'll take you long. What if you're incontinent?
Right.
You have to use the bathroom every 10 minutes or so. That's not going to work. I need something reliable. Uber's too expensive. Maybe I'm afraid of a driver. I've just security wise. Can I trust this person? So we are actually looking at self-driving cars for seniors. We want to be the first agency that brings self-driving cars for seniors. It's happening in Arizona. It's happening in Los Angeles. And we believe we are the agency that will bring it to San Diego. And we need the community's help. So anyone out there that is part of the UCSD self-driving program or Qualcomm or any of these other folks that Waymo that are figuring out self-driving cars, we'd love to talk to you and do a pilot with a couple of the senior centers here, because we have been a part of the circuit. I don't know if you've seen the circuit. It's an electric car that goes in a X amount of radius. We have it in Chula Vista.
I've not.
Free rides for seniors from a 5-mile radius. Mainly takes you to the waterfront, which is great because they're going to build that huge convention center there. Gas lamp and PB.
No, that's terrific. So, Tomas, what can we do? What can our listeners do? And you can add to this too, Kris, to support what you're doing.
Well, I think that people should seek out their local senior centers and see what's available there. I know there are a lot of people looking for volunteer opportunities, and at many locations, people don't even realize that there's a senior center in their neighborhood. I think a lot of people in the neighborhood of the Ed Brown Center in Rancho Bernardo have no idea because it's sort of tucked away on this beautiful piece of land, but it's behind some of the other rec centers and the tennis ball courts. And so it doesn't get, it's not noticed. And so it's not, people aren't aware of it. And I think that the other thing that people can do is adopt senior center.
I think people need to get, if someone has an older adult in their life and they're lonely, please go introduce them to their senior center. Norman Park Senior Center in Chula Vista put in a pickleball court, and their social aspect is wonderful. They have dancing. Karaoke is really big right now. I don't know if you know this, but Escondido has a pool hall. So you can go there and you don't have to be at a bar, and so your wife will be happy. But you go there. Marjan is huge. A lot of games around the town. There's also an aquatic center in Oceanside, and it makes USC's aquatic center look like a puddle. Wow. And it's gorgeous. So things like that.
Yeah, on your website then does it list all of the senior centers?
It does.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I know your website is vibrant, and again, this is why it's such a head scratcher for me. We're all some of us are already there, but no matter what, we're all going to be there. Okay, and it just makes too much sense to do this. How about last question for you folks? Well, first of all, what's the website? How we can get in touch with you?
It is www.sdscf.org. The San Diego Seniors Community Foundation.org. So sdscf.org.
Right, exactly. In this area, how do we get folks like Brandon, my associate producer, engaged with this? He's a student at UCSD.
Absolutely. So there are a lot of senior centers throughout the county that really need volunteer. And also, they love younger people, intergenerational. Yes. It's one of our pillars is that we do put a lot of money into intergenerational, especially grandparents raising grandkids. I have 2 young ones at home, a 2-year-old and 4-year-old. And I'm taking care of my kids and also my older parents. We're talking about putting in childcare at senior centers as well, and also adult daycare, which would be really huge. But please, if you want to get involved, I would say please go to your local senior center. They love technology training. That's one of the big things that the younger generations can help with. They love if you can move the furniture, set the thing up. There's ukulele classes, all these cool things that maybe that you could teach these seniors. Maybe you even teach them TikTok, for goodness sake. Let's not go that far. But there's a lot of great things that the younger generation can do, and a lot of people would probably be happy to hear about your story and hear what's going on at school, and a lot of great stuff like that.
Yeah, there are a lot of people and a lot of organizations doing really, really great work. And one of the challenges is getting the word out. And so anything that anyone can do to sort of, there's a lot more out there for people to get involved with, either from a volunteer perspective or resources available to people that need them. That it takes a little bit of work, but they're out there, and if people need help, we're
Right. Well, this is what I'd like to do. Definitely, we cannot talk enough about what you folks do. End of story. We never run out of content of what you guys are doing. Why don't we plan on your next return appearance is bring in some of the seniors that have benefited from what you have done. And now we can hear from the horse's mouth of this is what we've done. You can pick and choose who they are. Use it as you guys are marketing experts, so you can use it as this is what will help us raise some more funds in that aspect of it. And just to shoot me an email, and I'll give you some dates, and we'll bring them in here to talk about what they have benefited from your foundation.
I love it. Just real quick, the No Senior Loan campaign.
Yeah.
So earlier this year, No Senior Loan, as we said, loneliness.
Right.
We saw that February was free senior month at museums. So we went around the county and hired a bunch of buses and sent over 1,000 seniors to the safari park for the first time. A lot of these people have lived here for 30 plus years, never experienced the safari park due to transportation and parking costs. And so they got to experience that. So here we are sitting on the tram seeing a zebra for the first time. I mean, it was pretty incredible. But No Senior Loan for the holidays. We have a big campaign. If you want to help out, we do have, we grant out monies to the senior centers to put on holiday themed events, gifts, food, and more to attract seniors to the senior centers so they don't have to be alone for the holidays. And that goes a long way. And we've talked to so many seniors who said this, if this didn't exist, then we would not have a Christmas.
Yeah.
So,
well, again, there's, we can talk about this every single, week and never run out of stuff to talk about. But, and we're going to continue chatting with you folks about this. We believe in our Spotlight show. It's not once you're on and we'll see you in a year. It is, we have people on multiple times. And it's the only way to get the word out. As you were saying, Thomas, you have to say it once, you have to say it twice, you have to say it 2 billion times, and I'm preaching to the congregation with both of you. So we're going to look forward to having you back in sooner than later with some seniors that have benefited from the foundation's work.
Thank you.
Very, very good. Kris Kelly, Thomas Sherman, thank you so much for all the great work you're doing with the San Diego Senior Center Foundation. Hi to your dad for me, please.
Thank you.
I miss seeing him as well. I'm Drew Schlosberg. And you've been listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, the nation's longest-running community podcast, now in our 18th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union for 6 decades, doing great things for people living in San Diego County. We hope you enjoyed the show.
You've been listening to an episode of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego community. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
Cloudcast Media.